And this is the most confidence we've ever seen him have at the big league level.
That ball is hit well. Deep left center field. Adios! Pelota! Are you kidding me? Luis Matos is on fire. That's 3 more RBIs. He's had 8 in 2 days against the Rockies, including just the first inning of this one.
Now, back to Willard and Dibbs on 95.7 The Game.
I was bouncing around this weekend. I listened to John Miller do the very next at bat. John's out of things to say about Matos already. And what you heard him say there, he's just on fire. And then his next at bat, whacks a double into left center field. 1 run is in, 2 run is in, and he just said he just on fire. Like it's like I don't know what else to say.
What can you say?
My God, yeah. What a great weekend. And this might be another way to say it. You know, like, did the Giants do it right? Did they do it wrong? I'd have brought Luciano up at the beginning of the year, and I definitely would have brought him up over Casey Schmidt a week and a half ago, but he's here. And they adjusted that. And obviously, this whole conversation goes under the umbrella of very small sample. Let's see how it plays out. But Matos is now your center fielder, and Ramos might be the controversial one where you're like, okay, Conforto, Slater, what happens here going forward when those guys are ready? But here's the other side to the conversation, I think. If you're a Giants fan, this was the biggest sight for sore eyes that you've seen in 3 years. Because
collectively, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know how many times you and I have had this conversation over the last few years, but you cannot, there is no way to replace homegrown. You can't do it in sports. There's absolutely nothing better. And so that was such an incredible, I don't care that it was the Rockies. I got a couple of those tweets this week.
Sure.
Oh, you're excited because you beat the Rockies? Yes, I am. I'm excited because they beat the Rockies. A team, by the way, that showed up here on a 7-game win streak. So first of all, don't flick them off as if they weren't playing baseball. But secondly, like, I don't care who you're playing, you just add them up. What'd they score? 28 runs in 3 games?
The Giants.
At that stadium?
The Giants.
I don't care who you're playing.
Right.
28 runs at that yard in 3 games. Like that, and to have it have that feel, the homegrown feel of the whole thing is what everyone is waiting for. We know the story of Kevin Durant with the Warriors. Why couldn't he get in there with the big 3? Homegrown, right? Look at the 49ers. Who are your favorite 49ers? Homegrown. Your Kittles, your Debos, and now your Purdy's and your Ayuks, your Fred Warners and your Nick Bosas. You have to have that. And my bigger concern as of a week or two ago, the frustration level rising to such a point for the Giants was less about 1+1 contracts that they've signed for players who so far aren't performing. My bigger concern, and I told you this a couple of weeks ago, was the fact that the farm system's not spitting anyone out. And quite frankly, I don't get it. I don't get it. And these 3 guys are not Farhan draftees. They've all been in the organization for a while. These are not Farhan guys.
Right.
So you wonder about that. It's like, that is a question. Not are you holding them down because they're not your guys, but they're not your guys. It's kind of like the Joey Bart story. You went with Patrick Bailey. Why? Because he's your guy. And you were right. But like, why haven't these guys gotten a little bit more of your attention, maybe a little bit earlier? Who knows? Maybe there's something to that. Maybe Farhan's like, you know what I mean? They weren't my kind of player to begin with.
Yeah. There's the whole idea about draft and development. And a lot of times I think, lose sight in baseball of the and development part of it. Because even if Farhan didn't draft these guys, it's his job to put in place a certain amount of development so that they can come up and be players. Because when you get a job, part of your job is to take what was already there before you and make it better.
Sure.
It's not only, taking the guys that you drafted and having them improve and having them come up to the major league club and help. It's draft and develop. So these guys were here before Farhan, and if you don't like them or if you don't believe in them, Joey Bart, then your job is to trade them. And if you think that there's something there, then you develop them, you make them better, and hope they can come up and help you.
Tell you what, man, the Luciano one is, to me, is the one I have my eyes on the most, because it is filled with mystery. Matos now has runway. If that's your guy, great. He was here for a lot of the year last year, and now he's your center fielder because he just is. So he's got all the runway. Ramos has been the one that I think has been on the doorstep of the bigs the longest. And I do think at times over the last couple of years, he's the one who has suffered from not being a Farhan guy. I think there have been times over the last 2 years where the organization has been on the verge of giving up on Elliot Ramos. So the timing for all of these guys is also tremendously interesting. But Marco Luciano, for a while now, has been your number one prospect. And I know he's still a pup. He's 22 years old. But he's been your number one prospect for a while. He is a top 50 prospect in all of baseball. There have been times the last couple of years where he was a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. So why? I've got so many why questions about Marco. If you don't think he's a shortstop, why is he still playing shortstop?
Yeah, it's all he's ever played.
If you told us last year that he was going to be the opening day shortstop, why is he not the opening day shortstop? Why? What is it you see or don't see? And sure, 1 home run this year in Sacramento. That's not great. That's not great. But then you bring him up and you can see the way the ball jumps off the bat. Maybe the scouting report will come out. Maybe he'll start kicking balls at short. But that's the one to me that I feel is filled with a bunch of why questions, and therefore the one that maybe I'm watching the closest of the three here over the next couple of weeks.
Because if he continues to play as well as he did over the weekend, it's going to be hard to send him down, yet they already passed him over in the end of March and into early April for a guy, Nick Ahmed, who had never been a Giant before, and a guy who you brought in knowing full well that he probably wasn't going to light it up with the bat. He was a good defensive shortstop that you were going to tolerate his inability to hit because he was a good defensive shortstop, and that's what he's been. And then he got hurt, and now you had no choice but to go with Luciano because Casey Schmidt, again, is not showing any ability with the bat. And so now if Luciano can hit like he did for the first 3 or 4 games, you're going to have a hard time sending him down.
It's just a totally different lineup if he produces even just a little bit. Again, I don't think he needs to hit much above 240. It'd be great if he did.
Yeah.
But if that
240 is league average.
Yeah.
It's above average.
If I don't care that much about his batting average. There's 2 things to me that need to happen. And if they do, Luciano should be the shortstop for the rest of the year. There's 2 things. Number 1, don't kick the ball. Just be a league average defensive shortstop. Just make the plays that you need to make. Don't throw the ball all over the yard. Don't make major mistakes. Okay? That's number 1. Just be okay as a defensive player. And 2, keep the extra base hits coming. Like, listen, I'll take Luciano's 240 with a bunch of doubles versus Nick Ahmed's 240 with a bunch of singles. It's that simple. It changes the entire lineup when you can set the table and have literally, outside of Jorge Soler, the biggest person on the team can walk up there batting 8th and really put the fear of an extra base hit into the other team and then flip the lineup over again because they do have guys up there. You know, Lamont Wade has quietly just been fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
He's on base every time.
He's an all-star.
You know, and this Soler at the leadoff thing, again, whatever, that's weird, but it works. It worked over the weekend. He looks comfortable for the first time all year. Chapman is not striking out. You're going to score a lot of runs if you can do that. And it's a starting staff that may not even need a lot of runs.
Right.
So if he has that extra base pop and he can just not embarrass himself over at shortstop, my God, that's just a better player than Nick Ahmed.
It's starting to look like the lineup's got a little bit more length to it. There aren't as many automatic outs when you had Nick Ahmed in there. And, Kirk Casale's been great since he's come back, even in the 9-hole.
Love having him on the team.
It's fun having him back. And as a 9-hitter, he's a guy who can, produce a little bit.
There's another one. We haven't even talked about that. So Bailey comes back. Who's gone? Sable or Casale?
It's got to be Sable, I think. Even though Sable gives you a little bit more positional versatility.
Right.
But I think Casale is kind of the catcher that you want. And Sable, defensively as a catcher, leaves a lot to be desired. And I don't know if it's his one leg down approach or his inability to throw. It feels to me like, as a staff, you'd want to have Casale as opposed to Sable.
I think I agree with you. I really do. And Murphy's still going to be out for a while, so they are going to have to figure that out. And I'm hearing that things kind of went well for Patrick Bailey with he flew somewhere to see someone, and apparently that went well. So I don't know how quickly that gets him back. Obviously, you do not want to rush anything with a concussion.
Right.
That freaks everybody out, and it should. But when he comes back, all things considered, Sable still has options. Casale, if you let him go, he was a minor leaguer with the Cubs, but I don't even know exactly. He had a clause in his contract that if a major league offer was there, he could leave.
I think they signed him to a major league deal here, though, for $1 million, I was reading.
Right. Yeah, so you're probably right. They're probably going to send Blake Sable down and Kirk Casale, at least until Tom Murphy is ready. He's probably going to be on the team.
Right, and then maybe when Murphy comes back, you have a hard choice to make because it feels like Casale has endeared himself very well with the staff.
Well, Murphy,
I don't know what Murphy's deal is.
I think he got more than 1 year.
Okay,
if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Let me look that up while you talk on the radio or something.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk on the radio because he has a 2-year deal.
2-year, 8.25.
Oh, jeez.
Fully guaranteed Major League Baseball contract.
So there you go. So when he comes back, and it's going to be a while, I know, because the knee sprain was pretty significant. It was grade 2, so he's probably out for 6 weeks or so. But, you're in a spot where, fortunately, you've got some depth, and I don't think that you're going to have much of a question about Bailey when he's able to get healthy. It's going to probably be Sable, and then you figure it out from there with Casale.
The Giants just last week did transfer Murphy from the 15-day IL to the 60.
Yeah.
So not only is it going to be a while, it's going to be like a while.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe we won't see him again this year.
Maybe.
That's possible.
And, keep your eyes on possible surgery for Murphy if that's, the route that he wants to take because the knee injury looked to be more severe than just a minor tweak based on his own reaction. So we'll see what happens with that. But, catcher is one of the few areas where you're not too worried about what's going to happen. For me, the most interesting one is the Austin Slater piece because when Austin Slater is able to get healthy, and Conforto probably comes back before Slater, I would guess. Conforto, I think, is eligible to come off in a couple of days. So when he's able to come back, then I think you're going to see the first domino fall as to what you do with the roster.
I'll try to figure out when Slater is eligible. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
Well, he's on the concussion, so the 7-day concussion, and that's one where you can
fudge it.
Let's
just be real. You can fudge it.
Yes, and you will fudge it. And if you're dealing with Austin Slater, the conversation might be as easy as, look, Austin, we want you to have one more chance to be on this team, but we don't want it to be right now. So we're going to give you another week, and then when you're totally ready, we're going to give you enough at-bats to show yourself. And, if you do well, maybe we actually find a trade partner for you and we give you an opportunity to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we're not there yet.
We're not, but we're closer than you thought.
Well, again, I think that it's not, I know teams don't like to say this stuff out loud, but yeah, you fudge it. Like, buy as many at-bats as you can for these guys to see if they can do it. It's great. Home crowd, Colorado Rockies pitching. Cool. Now go to Pittsburgh and do it. Don't they? They're going to face the guy.
Yeah.
What's his name? What's the Pirates guy's name? The guy that's just like the best pitcher in the history of ever who just came up?
Paul Skeens?
Skeens.
Isn't he on the
He was incredible in his second ever start.
But he's facing the Giants here this week, right?
I think so.
I think he's on Wednesday, maybe.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So they're going to face him, and then they got to go to New York to play the Mets, and then y'all have looked ahead at the next homestand, right? You want to talk about
a couple good teams coming in.
Skeens Thursday, by the way.
Okay, Thursday. It's just the two best teams in baseball. That's it. It's just the best team in the National League and then the best team in the American League.
Skeens 6'6", 235. He's 21 years old.
Did you see the
21, coach?
See the interview with him where they talked about like, okay, now as you get to the bigs, people are going to get a book on you, and they might make an adjustment. He started laughing. He laughed at the reporter.
Really?
He's 21, and he goes, yeah, they can go ahead and adjust. I'm like, oh, my God.
Skeens.
You've got some confidence, young buck.
Yep.
Yo.
He's
got the stuff, man. He's got the goods. So, yeah, Giants are going to get a look at him. Let's see how Marco and Elliott and Luis look against him. And then against the Phillies and against the Yankees and all of that. It's all coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and I think you'll get a little bit of a better vibe. But, yeah, we're all hoping the same thing. I do not want to hear Ahmed's healthy, go. Sorry, Marco, you're out. Like, no, just wait a sec.
Right.
Just wait a sec. Like, this is interesting. And it wouldn't take much for Marco to be a better option than Nick Ahmed. It won't take much. Don't kick the ball and just add extra base hits to the mix. That's it.
Yes, and he will naturally do that because he's a much better athlete and he's got more power than Nick Ahmed. So if he makes contact and he gets base hits, then he's going to probably naturally get more extra base hits. I do think the first one that's going to come up is going to be Conforto, who went on the 10-day DL, which was 8 days ago. So he might be a guy who can be activated. He's a left-hand bat, and you probably would want him to face the right-hand Skeens on Thursday if Conforto is able to get back with his hamstring strain.
Probably.
And so, I mean, what's the move there?
Not sending Ramos down. That wouldn't be the move yet. They sent Tyler Fitzgerald down today. So they're making room. That's probably for Blake Snell, would be my guess. But you're not going to send out another outfielder just because Conforto's ready. You're down 3 outfielders already.
Right.
So you're going to keep Ramos up when Conforto gets back. Yeah, it's the Slater.
Maybe you send out a pitcher. Or...
Yeah, probably a reliever.
Yep.
Maybe Randy Rodriguez will not be allowed to have his light show anymore. I don't know.
It's going to be somebody.
I don't know, but that's. I know that everybody right now, there's going to be a little pins and needles based on this because where we will arrive, I have no doubt, is exactly where we spent much of the Warrior season. And that is, do you stick kids in there and let them take bumps and bruises in hopes that they start their growth process and start to play really well? Or do you try to win right now? And the Warriors and Steve Kerr took a lot of lumps all year verbally from people because of the Kuminga had to go to Shams in order to get playing time. And there's still Moses Moody frustration as we speak. Pods and TJD get in there and people immediately go, why weren't they in there earlier? I don't know if they would have looked like that if you put them in there earlier. I feel the same way about these 3 guys. Like, you can say, oh, they shoulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda had them up. Well, what would they have done if you had them up a month and a half ago? I don't know. The Luciano one, again, for me, it's less about how they look and what they would do because there's no way to know that. It's more about what's the alternative. And Michael Conforto is a really good player. So no one should have any issue with him coming back and getting starts. But Slater and Ahmed are the 2 players that I think the Giants are going to have a hard time injecting back onto this team as long as those guys are hitting the ball.
Right. And Slater, I think, is a tougher one than Ahmed because Ahmed has only been here for a month and a half. And so if Luciano's not booting the ball around like you're talking about, then it's easy to put him out there. and suffer through some bumps and bruises as long as he can play a decent defensive shortstop because he brings so much more to the plate than Ahmed does. But Slater's going to be tougher because he does have a good track record. And you've heard Farhan, you've heard Bob Melvin. They've all talked about, well, the sample this year is really not great. He's only gotten 40 plate appearances or 40 at-bats. And so we still believe that with a bigger sample that Austin Slater can come out and, return to his form of old. So that's going to be a tougher one for them to move off of just because in their mind, Austin Slater hasn't really gotten a chance yet this year.
Here's the thing, though. Austin Slater's a platoon player.
Yeah.
Okay? So just file that for a sec. You want to know what I noticed over the weekend, these last 4 games? You want to know what I noticed is this. The Giants stopped platooning because they have no choice. They literally are lucky right now if they can field a defensive lineup.
With 9 human beings, or 8 rather.
Do you know who was totally silent throughout this huge explosion of a 4-game win streak? Wilmer Flores.
Yeah.
He's not even in there. He can't even get in at bat right now. Partially because Wade has been so good, partially because they've been facing a lot of right-handers. Okay, you're facing right-handers. So what would that mean? That would mean you're going with Jung-Hoo Lee and Michael Conforto.
Yep. And
not Matos and Ramos. But what the Giants did over the weekend, they had the same 8 players play the whole weekend. No platoons. No, it's the 4th inning and a lefty's now in. Let's start flying all over the place and pinch hitting. They didn't do any of that. And they scored 28 runs. Look, these are baseball smart people, and platooning has been going on forever. So I'm not saying that that's the end of that forever, but I do think we're probably arriving at a time where there needs to be less reliance on that concept. Not just on the Giants, everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Well, it's easy to have less reliance on that when you have players who are good. When you have a good player, you can put him up against a righty if he's right-handed. You can have him face lefties. You can play him 6 out of every 7 games because he's a good player. And that's how it was when we were kids and you watched, the Giants or any other team you wanted to follow. You didn't really have a thing called platooning because you had better baseball players. So if you're a good team and you have good players, you don't have to worry about platooning.